Yes. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, and we see a lot of other things too. There you go. Perfect.
Okay. Great. So good evening.
Gretchen has a little ding at about, Gretchen, do that at about 12 minutes if you can. Go ahead. She'll have a little chime.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Amanda Trainer, and I'm the Partnerships Coordinator and Small Business Tax Associate at Brooklyn Cooperative Federal Credit Union in Central Brooklyn. So I have a couple of different roles. And I'm also in the master's program here in Urban Studies. And then, as Rebecca said, I'm finishing up the certificate in Workplace Democracy and Community Ownership. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about what I've been working on this semester. To start, I just want to tell you about Brooklyn Co-op. It is my day job, and so I decided to bring something that I'm working on to my studies so that they can really inform each other. So Brooklyn Co-op is a federal credit union in Central Brooklyn, as I mentioned. We have 8,000 members across Central Brooklyn and Bed-Stuy, Bushwick, and then East New York. Pretty soon, we're going to be opening a new branch. All of our services are offered in Spanish and English, and we're a member-owned co-op, and so there's lots of opportunities to have your voice heard and make decisions and be involved in decision-making processes. And there's our mission. We want to further wealth building and opportunity and resilience for people who have been excluded by banking historically. I also wanted to offer a little bit about why credit unions are so important versus the bigger banks. There's a lot to say, but some of the things that I'll start with is that we're really rooted in community. All of our members have to have some relationship to the neighborhoods that I mentioned, Bed-Stuy, Bushwick, and East New York. It doesn't mean you have to live here, but you have to have some relationship in that maybe you have family here, maybe you worship here, go to school, work, all of those types of things. And so we really want the people who are involved in the co-op making decisions to be people who are impacted by those decisions and living in the immediate community. The services are designed for people who have historically faced neglect and abuse by financial institutions. So whether they weren't here, whether they were participating in things like redlining or not offering folks mortgages or loans so that they could grow their businesses, we really fill the need, and all of our services are designed for those people in mind versus a big bank who is huge and has lots of people, but they're not centering, and in fact, they're excluding a lot of these folks. We also work with undocumented immigrants who often can't access these services. And we support the self-employed and other excluded communities through different offerings that we have. So we have a small business tax program that I mentioned I'm a part of, and that's designed for small business owners who maybe don't know how to navigate their taxes, and we can support. And then money also stays local. So when you have money in the credit union, it's immediately being circulated back into the community through loans and things that we offer to small businesses or personal loans that people might take out. And so you know that you're empowering people around you versus having your money go out and you're not quite sure where it's being invested, or you do know and it's not great places. And so aside from the community relationships, we also have cooperative values and governance. So, we're really rooted in, we're grassroots, and we're transparent and accountable to the people that we serve. Our members are directly involved in governance and decision making. And decisions are made by those who are most impacted. And so you don't have, with larger banks where people are making decisions, but they have no roots in the community or nowhere involved. And so they're making decisions that are not healthy for humans or people-centered. And so we are definitely making human-centered decisions. And we also value people, planet, and profits, all three together. And in this case, profits means financial stability and accountability to our community. So we're making sure we're stable and a safe place for folks to hold their money and to get loans from. But profits does not mean that we're padding the pockets of certain individuals. So my project is, we've really been wanting to look at how to expand our governance structure and also member engagement in general. I know some of you were on, have seen this presentation of mine earlier on in the semester. And through these Dolphin Schools, I really have expanded the scope of what I was thinking about. Earlier on, I was really looking at sociocracy, and now I've been thinking more about member engagement in general and creating a plan so that folks can be more engaged in the decision-making structures. So we have some goals. One of them is the governance. So we want to grow the 7-member board that we currently have to about 35 people who are directly involved in decision-making power. Might be less, might be more, depending on what makes sense, but that's kind of a number that we've gone with. We also want to increase member engagement overall. We really want people to feel like that their voices really matter and that they are the governance. You know, people are members, but they're the ones making decisions for the credit union. And so we want to build the community both internally and externally, and then offer folks training so that they really can access decision making and understand what they're doing, understand how to run a credit union. And then this is also, you know, we see this as radical experimentation. And so how can we tap into the revolutionary potential of financial institutions and really see economic democracy in action, particularly in a space where we don't always think of economic democracy. Like, we don't always think financial institutions and economic democracy. And so this could really be an opportunity to see what's possible for the financial sector. So what is sociocracy? It's a big topic. I could talk about it for a long time. And so I'm just doing kind of the basics and have lots of resources to share if people want to learn more. But it's decentralized and semi-autonomous decision-making. And so it's a model that really aims to build trust. Usually you'll have a small group of folks making decisions for lots of people. And so in sociocracy, you have folks sitting in smaller circles informing a circle in the middle. And so the smaller circles are well-defined, they know their purpose, and they have a particular area of governance and roles. So maybe one particular area of governance could be member engagement. And so those folks make the decisions, they create planning for engaging more members, and they're the ones who are making those decisions. And then they are informing the center circle of what's going on so that everything is transparent and everybody can know what's happening, even if they're involved in the decision making or not. When you have these smaller circles, folks are trusted to make the decisions because you don't have to be involved in every area, and you can trust people to make the decisions on your behalf, knowing that you're all working towards the same goal and doing so with best intentions. And while the circles do operate autonomously, they are accountable to all of the circles and including the circle in the middle. And so, you know, it must be transparent what's happening. There's different processes to ensure people are making decisions in democratic ways. And also groups must stay small. If you have lots of folks interested in member engagement, you might decide that there's different subcircles to break off into so that you don't have 20 people making a decision when you could have, you know, 5 in specific areas. Sociocracy is also consent-based. And so you're making decisions based on consent and not consensus. And so consensus means everybody has to agree, whereas consent, you decide what you can tolerate. And so, you know, if I'm involved in a decision, maybe I'm not happiest with what the decision ends up being, but it's tolerable for me. And so I don't feel like it's going to cause harm or destruction to the project or to people. And so I offer consent. Yes, I consent to this decision. And so that's really the basis of it. And so it keeps it democratic and also efficient. Anybody who wants to contribute can. And so, like I said, you can be in different circles, but you don't have to be, but you can still access all the information. And then consent-based decision-making is done in rounds. And so it's a very particular decision-making process, and everybody knows what's going to happen, when they're going to be the ones to speak. And they're given small amounts of time so that everybody's getting equal amount of time to speak on a certain decision. And then feedback is central to this as well. It has to be free-flowing. Everybody has to know what's understanding, and you have to be constantly be gauging your impact, again, both on the project and on the people that it will be affecting. So here's an example, the People's Organization of Community Acupuncture. They use sociocracy. Theirs is very sophisticated compared to what ours will be, at least to start. So they have a general circle where somebody from each of the larger circle, each of the smaller circles will sit so that everybody knows what's happening in each of the groups. And then, as you can see, there's lots of sub-circles. And in this case, the board of directors is separate from the general circle, where ours will be slightly different. And I'll show you in a second. But essentially, for the finance group, for example, they might have decided that they needed to break off into these smaller groups in order to get things done. And these can function as task forces, and so they can disappear as needed. They can be created as needed. So currently, our board is 7 members. They You do have to be a member of the credit union to be on our board. Again, those who are making the decisions are the ones impacted. And so it's really important that you are involved in the credit union. They meet monthly currently, and they are also from all different industries: community organizing, finance, law, and business development. And so we do have a diverse range of experiences and expertise. And so this is what we ultimately would like to expand into. So ours is different, as I mentioned. The general circle, the one in the middle, would start out by being our 7-member board, because they've been in the governance structure for a bit. They're really familiar with the credit union, and they can help facilitate some of the newer folks who maybe aren't used to being involved in a governance structure like this. At least that's the idea. And so each of them would represent one of the smaller circles. And there's also some legality things that we're not quite sure about, like how a credit union, because we are regulated differently, like how more people can be involved in the board or not. So that's something we're still working out. But these are some of the groups that we came up with that might be useful. We're always willing to adjust these as needed and as the group ebbs and flows. So this is just a plan for now. It's a draft. And so, as I mentioned, like, sociocracy is kind of the larger goal, but I've been thinking a lot about, well, how do we get there? And so I've been thinking about member engagement in 2 ways. And really this, again, came out of conversations when I did my last presentation, and there was so much community input that was really valuable. And so they're the ones who really set me on the course to think about this differently. So member engagement I see in 2 ways: internal and the external. So the internal is building a stronger community that we already have. As I mentioned, we have 8,000 members. And so how can we deepen our engagement with those folks and get them more involved? So one thing we've been doing is town halls. These are 5 different topics over 18 months. We just did our first one back in October. And the idea is to get people to understand what it takes to run a credit union, essentially. So some of the topics are why credit unions, why they're important, balance sheets, profits and losses. So things that people would really need to know in order to run the credit union, whether they want to be involved in the governance or not. I think this is useful for folks to be informed and educated on what happens with their money and how all of this works. So so 5 topics over 18 months. And then we just did our first one, as I mentioned, and what came out of that is people really need financial education workshops. And so we're trying to put together more workshop series and events, such as the small business tax workshops, to engage folks and meet the needs of what people are asking for and really looking for support from their credit union. And then we also have annual meetings, so folks can vote on different decisions and understand what's happening and be involved in that way. And then the external is to build the membership, and not just numbers, but just so that people know we're out there and that we can offer specialized services that maybe they're not getting elsewhere, and also to engage community partners. So there's different ways we can partner with community members. Sometimes we have referral agreements, and so if they send folks our way, we can waive $25 membership fee. We can share some space depending on the size of groups. If a group needs to meet, they can maybe do so at our branch. We table different events. We can partner on different workshops. We partner on for tax clients. Lots of some of the co-op incubators send folks our way. And so we really, again, want to meet the needs of our community partners and other folks we're not partnered with yet. And then we're opening a new branch in East New York, as I mentioned. And so that's another way that we can really build trust with folks and get folks involved so that they know we're here, and hopefully expand the amount of people involved in our governance. So from 8,000 people down to, the 35 people I mentioned that we would like to have in our sociocracy circles, we would continue doing ongoing training. We take really seriously that people need to be educated and understand some of these things in order to access democracy, and also not even understanding, but also a lot of us have trauma from past spaces we've been involved in, having our voices ignored in various ways. And so how can we continue to work with people on an ongoing basis so that we can be trained and working on these different things so that we can build that sense of trust when it comes to making decisions under sociocracy. So Some of the ideas that we have for training is how to run a credit union, of course, training people on sociocracy and what the decision-making rounds will look like, nonviolent communication, cooperatives in general, solidarity economy, all these types of things that can really anchor folks in what it is we're doing and why it's so important. So what does this have to do with economic democracy? This is, I think, what really got me excited about this project for this semester is I think a lot about how any of us can do like anti-racism work, economic democracy at any level and in any space we're in. We don't have to be in a cooperative necessarily. We can be in any workplace and expanding who is involved in things. And so, some of the values that I really care about and I really want to see in this project is the decision-making by the people most impacted again, the ability for people to access democracy. So, what good is it to have this whole structure if people don't even feel empowered to participate in the first place? And then I also think experimentation is really important. The ability to not wait for perfection. That's also a tenet of sociocracy is it safe enough for now? And can we just try it? And I think that's something that's really important because we can often be our own worst critics. And so, this project will go on for the next about 24 months. We have a plan for. And so, these things aren't going to happen in steps. They'll happen simultaneously. And again, this is bigger than just the certificate I'm working on now because it's something that I do at work. So these are some questions that I had for Karen, my respondent, as well as just general feedback that I would love from you.
Great. Bravo, Amanda. Thank you for going first. I'm going to invite you to stop sharing screen.
Okay.
We're going to spotlight you and Karen. I might need help with that, finding you and Karen. But once we spotlight you, and Nick already gave the applause icon and is helping. And just, again, I just want to remind people, it's really, what do you need? Are you in? How can this work more? And I'm looking for Karen. Karen Joseph, was it?